The radio had been dead for 30 years. Then a child whispered through it, "Do not open that door." Nathan Mercer froze with one hand wrapped around the rusted steel handle. A faded warning stripe crossed the door at chest height, its red paint peeling from decades of salt, air, and neglect. Behind him, Echo stopped scratching the concrete floor. The German shepherd lifted his head toward a narrow ventilation pipe running along the bunker wall, amber eyes fixed on something Nathan could not see. Static poured from an old field radio resting beneath a layer of dust on the communications desk. Its green indicator flickered weakly, though the bunker had no working electricity. Nathan released the door handle and turned toward the sound. The room smelled of damp concrete, corroded wire, machine oil, and ocean wind trapped beneath the earth. Rain tapped against the entrance somewhere behind him, faint and distant through nearly 40 feet of passageway. "Say that again," Nathan called. The speaker hissed. Nothing answered. Echo moved to the radio, touched the metal casing with his nose, then crossed to the ventilation pipe and pressed one ear against it. He looked back at Nathan. Once. Deliberately. Nathan had followed the dog nearly a mile through coastal pine forest after Echo stepped into the service road and blocked his truck. The K-9 had not barked or circled in panic. He had tugged Nathan's pant leg, run toward the trees, and returned when Nathan failed to follow. 3 times. Now the same patient urgency lived in every movement. Nathan reached for the hand crank mounted beside the radio and turned it slowly. The mechanism resisted at first, then began to move with a low metallic hum. Dust trembled across the desk. The green light brightened. Static filled the bunker again, rising and falling like distant surf. Then came a breath. Small, uneven, human. "Can you hear me?" Nathan asked. A pause stretched through the room. Echo whined softly into the vent. The radio clicked. "Echo." The voice belonged to a girl. Young, frightened, but fighting to remain calm. The shepherd pressed closer to the pipe, tail low, ears forward. "He is here," Nathan said. "My name is Nathan. Tell me where you are." The answer broke apart beneath static. Lower room, communications level, door locked. Nathan glanced at the red steel door. Water struck the other side with a dull, irregular sound. "Not much, but enough." "Are you hurt?" "My shoulder is sore. I can stand." Her breathing faded, then returned. "Please do not open the red door. Grandpa said it is a flood door. The water is behind it." Nathan stepped away from the handle. Years earlier, as a marine communications specialist, he had learned that a weak signal could save lives only if the person receiving it resisted the urge to guess. He looked over the bunker walls, searching for an alternate route, a maintenance diagram, anything the dust had not erased. "What is your name?" he asked. "Amara Lewis." Echo gave a low sound at the name. "How long have you been down there?" Static swallowed the first part of her reply. Then 4 words came through clearly. "The battery says 18 minutes. Outside, thunder rolled across the North Carolina coast. Somewhere below the concrete floor, water began moving through an old drainage channel. Nathan reached for his telephone, but before he could call for help, the radio crackled once more. "Mr. Nathan," Amara whispered, "there are 2 tunnels on the map. One of them is wrong." 3 hours earlier, Nathan Mercer had arrived at the abandoned coastal station, believing the hardest decision of his day would be whether to preserve a concrete relic or replace it with something profitable. The morning sky over North Carolina had been pale and windless, the Atlantic hidden beyond rows of longleaf pine and silver marsh grass. He drove alone in an old dark blue Ford pickup, the same truck he had owned before Mercer Signal Systems placed his name on glass towers, research centers, and contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Nathan was 44, a white American billionaire, and a former staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. Wealth had changed the rooms where people waited for his decisions. It had not changed the way he checked exits when he entered them, or the way his attention sharpened whenever a radio produced static. On the passenger seat lay a leather folder containing the demolition authorization for Station 12, a Cold War communications bunker listed in company records as empty, inactive, and historically insignificant. The property would become the eastern relay point for a new emergency data network. Engineers had praised the location. Investors had praised the schedule. Richard Vail, the regional development director, had promised that every inspection was complete. Nathan had placed his initials beneath that assurance before leaving Raleigh. He had not signed the final order. Something in the report bothered him. Not an error he could name. A silence where there should have been detail. At the rusted service gate, Nathan found the chain hanging loose. A weathered warning sign leaned into the weeds, its lettering nearly erased by salt and sun. Beyond it, an overgrown road disappeared beneath pine needles. He parked and continued on foot, carrying a flashlight, a field notebook, and the old brass compass he had kept since his final deployment. The station emerged slowly from the trees, a low concrete structure buried into a dune, with a collapsed antenna tower resting beside it like a fallen mast. No birds called near the entrance. Only wind moved through the grass. Nathan photographed the exterior and checked the inspection map. According to the document, both bunker doors had been welded shut 6 months earlier. The main door stood open by 4 inches. Fresh scratches marked the ground beneath it. Then a dog appeared from behind the building. A sable German shepherd, lean and rain-damp, wearing a faded working collar. The animal stopped 20 feet away and studied Nathan with amber eyes. He did not growl. He walked forward, caught Nathan's pant leg gently between his teeth, and released it. Then he ran toward the tree line. Nathan remained still. The dog returned. He repeated the motion. On the 3rd attempt, Nathan followed. The shepherd led him away from the visible entrance, through wet brush and across a shallow drainage ditch, until they reached a concealed side passage beneath a curtain of vines. A child's yellow backpack rested beside the doorway. One strap was torn. Written across the front in black marker were 2 words, Amara Lewis. Nathan looked at the dog. The animal touched the backpack with his nose, then entered the darkness. Nathan followed, unaware that the demolition order in his truck was not the most dangerous document on the property. Somewhere beneath his feet, a hand-powered radio was waiting for someone to listen. That same morning, 12-year-old Amara Lewis sat at her grandmother's kitchen table with a yellow backpack at her feet and an old radio logbook open beneath the sunlight. She was a Black American girl with warm brown skin, careful braids, and the patient eyes of someone who listened before speaking. Echo rested beside her chair, his sable coat touched with gray around the muzzle, one ear angled toward the weather report playing softly from the counter. A tropical system was moving north along the Atlantic, still far enough away that most people in Carteret County had continued with their Saturday plans. Amara had not. Her history teacher had assigned each student a project about a forgotten place in the community, and she had chosen Station 12, the buried communications bunker near the coast. Her grandfather, Isaiah Lewis, had maintained emergency radio equipment there for years after leaving the United States Marine Corps. He had died 2 winters earlier, leaving behind notebooks filled with call signs, tied charts, hand-drawn circuits, and the names of families he had helped during storms. The official county archive mentioned the bunker in only 3 sentences. It did not mention Isaiah at all. Amara traced his handwriting across one faded page. Static is not silence, he had written. It is a room full of voices waiting to be separated. Her grandmother stood at the sink, watching clouds gather beyond the yard. Stay on the marked path, Ruth Lewis said. Take your photographs and come straight home. I will. And if that dog tells you something is wrong, believe him before you believe yourself. Amara smiled and fastened Echo's leash. The walk to the station followed a public shoreline trail through pine woods and marsh grass. The air smelled of salt, wet bark, and the metallic promise of rain. Echo moved steadily at her side until they reached the rusted service gate. There he stopped. The chain hung loose. A printed notice on the fence announced that demolition work would begin soon. Amara photographed it, then looked beyond the gate toward the low concrete shape hidden under vines. She had come for proof that her grandfather's work had mattered. Now she realized the place might disappear before anyone remembered it properly. She followed the old access road for less than a quarter mile, remaining close to the path Isaiah had drawn in his notebook. At the bunker entrance, she found one steel door partly open. Fresh scrape marks crossed the concrete beneath it. Echo lowered his nose and pulled toward a narrow side passage concealed by brush. Inside, the temperature dropped. Amara switched on her flashlight. Dust floated through the beam, and water tapped somewhere deep in the walls. The communications room looked abandoned, but not empty. A hand-powered field radio sat on the desk beneath a canvas cover. Beside it lay a brass key, a grease pencil, and one of Isaiah's handwritten frequency cards. Amara removed the cover and turned the generator crank. The mechanism groaned, then loosened. A green light appeared. She adjusted the dial to the emergency frequency her grandfather had circled in red. "This is Amara Lewis at Station 12, she said into the microphone. "Radio check. Does anyone copy?" Only static answered. Echo stared toward the lower stairwell. Amara tried again. Nothing. Then, beneath the noise, she heard a faint tone pulsing at regular intervals. 3 short sounds. A pause. 3 more. She looked down at Isaiah's frequency card and found a note written along the bottom margin. Secondary communications level. Manual relay still active. Amara lifted her flashlight. The stairwell door stood open. Echo gave a quiet warning sound, but she touched his collar and whispered, "Just one photograph." She stepped onto the first stair. Behind them, the coastal wind entered the bunker and began pushing the heavy steel door inward. The wind pushed harder. The heavy entrance door moved 6 inches, then another 6, scraping across the concrete with a sound like stone dragged over bone. Echo spun toward it. Amara heard the warning in his bark and turned, but the door slammed before she reached the top of the stairs. The bunker shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. For 1 second, everything went black except the narrow beam of her flashlight. "Echo," she called. His paws struck the other side of the steel. Once, twice, then fast. Amara climbed back up and pulled at the handle. It did not move. The old locking bar had dropped into place from the impact. She pushed with both hands, braced one foot against the wall, and tried again. "Nothing. I am okay," she said, though her voice sounded smaller inside the concrete room. Echo answered with a low whine. Amara pressed her forehead against the cold door. "Find someone." The dog stopped scratching. Silence held for 2 breaths. Then his nails clicked rapidly across the floor as he ran toward the side passage. Amara listened until the sound disappeared. She was alone. The lower stairwell descended beneath the communications room in a tight curve. A weak green glow still came from the field radio. The hand generator had stored only a little power, but enough to keep the receiver alive. Amara returned to the desk and turned the crank until her arm ached. Static rolled from the speaker. She tried the emergency frequency again. "This is Amara Lewis at Station 12. I am locked inside the lower bunker. Does anyone copy?" No answer. Rain began tapping above her, soft at first, then steady. Water found the old seams in the ceiling and traveled down the walls in silver threads. Amara opened Isaiah's logbook and searched for anything about the door. His notes were precise, but some pages had faded. She found a drawing of the bunker levels, a red flood door, and 2 maintenance tunnels marked east and west. One line had been crossed out so many times that the paper had nearly torn. Beneath it, Isaiah had written, "Never trust the west tunnel after heavy rain." Amara lifted the flashlight and went down. The air grew colder with every step. At the bottom, a steel corridor stretched beneath exposed pipes. The red flood door stood closed at the far end. Water whispered behind it. Not rushing. Not yet. The communications room was to the left, protected by another manual latch. Amara entered and found a second radio unit mounted to the wall, connected to a hand battery box. She set down her backpack, opened the panel, and checked the gauge. 18 minutes remained if she transmitted carefully. She pressed the call switch. "Echo, if you can hear me, keep going." Only static replied. Then a distant metallic bang echoed through the corridor. The wind had shifted something above. Amara studied the old wall map. The east shaft appeared to lead toward the surface. The west shaft appeared shorter. But Isaiah had drawn a black X over it and added one final note. False return. Sound travels the wrong way here. Trust the dog. Amara looked toward the ventilation grate. From far inside the duct came a faint scrape. Then another. Echo was still somewhere above, searching. She leaned close to the microphone. "Please bring somebody back," she whispered. Outside, nearly a mile away, a German shepherd stepped into the middle of a service road and waited for the first vehicle to appear. The first vehicle appeared as a dark blue Ford pickup moving slowly along the service road. Echo stepped into the center of the lane and held his ground. Nathan Mercer saw the German shepherd 20 yards ahead and eased off the accelerator. The dog wore a faded working collar. Rain darkened the sable fur along his back, but he did not look lost. He looked certain. Nathan stopped the truck. Echo approached the driver's door, touched his nose to the glass, then ran toward the trees. Nathan watched him disappear beneath the pines. The dog returned within seconds, caught the fabric of Nathan's pant leg gently between his teeth after he stepped out, and released it without pulling hard. Then he ran back toward the forest. "All right," Nathan said. "Show me." Echo moved quickly, but never so far that Nathan lost sight of him. He crossed a shallow drainage ditch, slipped through wet brush, and followed an overgrown path toward the abandoned station. Twice, Nathan slowed to check the ground. Twice, Echo returned and waited. The third time, the dog stood beside a concealed concrete passage and stared at him until he entered. A yellow backpack rested near the doorway. The name Amara Lewis was written across the front. Nathan lifted it and felt the weight of a camera, school papers, and a hardcover notebook inside. No telephone. No jacket. Echo touched the backpack with his nose, then moved deeper into the bunker. Nathan followed with his flashlight raised. The passage smelled of wet concrete and old electrical insulation. A steel entrance door had locked itself behind whoever entered, but a narrow side route remained open where vines had hidden it from the inspection team. Fresh paw marks crossed the dust. Smaller shoe prints continued toward the communications room. Echo reached an old field radio, placed one paw beside it, then ran to a ventilation pipe along the eastern wall. He pressed his ear against the metal. After several seconds, he returned to the radio and repeated the same sequence. Radio. Vent. Red door. Nathan studied him. "You do not want that opened." Echo gave one sharp breath and went back to the vent. Nathan turned the hand generator beside the radio. The first rotations produced only resistance. Then the mechanism loosened. A low hum moved through the metal casing. The indicator light flickered green. Static rose from the speaker. Nathan adjusted the frequency with slow, careful movements. He heard nothing but rain, electrical hiss, and a faint repeating tone. 3 short pulses. A pause. 3 more. Echo's ears lifted. Nathan leaned closer. "This is Nathan Mercer at Station 12. Anyone receiving, respond." The static shifted. A breath came through. Then a girl's voice, broken by interference. "Echo." The dog moved so quickly that his shoulder brushed Nathan's knee. He stared at the speaker and whined. "He is here," Nathan said. "You are not alone. Tell me your name." "Amara Lewis." Her words faded, then returned. Lower communications room. Nathan reached for the red door handle, thinking it might lead downward. The radio erupted with static. "Do not open it," Amara said. "Water is behind that door." Nathan removed his hand. He looked toward the vent, the backpack, and the dog who had crossed nearly a mile to bring back the only passing driver. "How much power do you have?" he asked. A pause followed. The signal weakened. 18 minutes. Thunder rolled over the coast. Nathan took out his telephone and called emergency services, giving the station coordinates, the locked lower level, and the warning about rising water. When he ended the call, Echo touched the eastern vent again. Nathan pressed his palm to the pipe. From far below came 3 faint knocks. Then Amara spoke through the radio. "There are 2 tunnels on the map," she said, "but one of them sends the sound the wrong way." Nathan kept one hand on the radio dial and the other against the cold ventilation pipe. "Tell me exactly what you see," he said. Amara took a slow breath before answering. "The wall map shows an east shaft and a west shaft. The west one looks shorter, but Grandpa crossed it out. He wrote that sound bends inside the concrete." Static swallowed the end of her sentence. Nathan adjusted the frequency until her breathing returned. "Stay with me. What is the water doing?" "It is coming under the red door in a thin line, maybe half an inch deep near the wall." "Is it rising fast?" "Not yet." Nathan looked toward the entrance. Rain drummed harder above the bunker, and the wind pushed salt air through the hidden passage. On his telephone, the emergency dispatcher confirmed that the county rescue unit was responding, but fallen pine limbs had blocked part of the coastal road. The team was at least 15 minutes away. Nathan did not tell Amara that. "Your battery says 18 minutes, he said. "We are going to make every one of them useful." Echo lay beside the eastern vent, body still, ears forward. Nathan pulled the yellow backpack closer and opened it carefully. Inside were a school camera, 2 pencils, a small bottle of water, and Isaiah Lewis's thick radio logbook. He turned the pages until he found a rough diagram of the lower level. The drawing showed the red flood door, the communications room, and 2 narrow maintenance shafts. One was labeled East Intake. The other carried a dark line through it, and 3 handwritten words, False Acoustic Return. Amara, your grandfather drew the east shaft beside the communications room. Can you find a vent cover? She moved away from the microphone. The radio filled with soft crackling and the distant sound of metal touching metal. There is one above the battery box, she said. About 7 feet high. Do not climb anything unstable. Can you shine your flashlight through it? Yes. A faint tapping traveled through the pipe beneath Nathan's palm. Echo rose immediately. He touched the eastern vent with his nose, then looked at Nathan. I hear you, Nathan said. 3 taps. That was me. Her voice carried a little more strength now. Good. Do it again. 3 taps came through, clearer this time. Nathan marked the east pipe on the bunker wall with a grease pencil he found near the radio. He followed it toward a maintenance corridor half hidden behind a row of rusted storage cabinets. The passage ended at a bolted steel panel. A faded stencil read Air Intake Access. Nathan photographed it and sent the image to the dispatcher. That may be the safest entry point, he said. Tell the rescue captain the west tunnel is unreliable. The radio clicked. Mr. Nathan? I am here. You sound like my grandpa when the weather got bad. Nathan glanced down at Isaiah's logbook. Was he a Marine? Yes. Communications. For a moment, the bunker seemed to shrink around him. Nathan remembered another dark room, another failing signal, and an old analog set that had carried a voice through miles of interference when newer equipment had gone silent. So was I, he said. Amara did not answer immediately. Then her voice softened. Then you know what he always said. Nathan looked at the line written across the open page. Static is not silence. I think I do. Outside, sirens approached faintly through the storm. Echo stood and faced the entrance. Nathan kept turning the hand generator, slow and steady, feeding the radio 1 more minute of life at a time. Then Amara spoke again, quieter now. The water just reached the first step. The first rescue truck reached the station through sheets of rain, its red lights flashing across the pine trunks and wet concrete. Captain Elena Ruiz entered the bunker wearing a yellow waterproof jacket, a helmet lamp, and the steady expression of someone who had learned never to let urgency become panic. 2 firefighters followed with air monitors, rope bags, portable lights, and a compact rescue frame. Nathan met them at the communications desk without leaving the radio. 12-year-old girl, lower communications room, he said. Water is entering from behind the red flood door. The east intake may be the safest route. The west tunnel creates a false acoustic return. Elena looked at the open logbook, the grease pencil mark on the eastern pipe, and Echo lying beside the vent. How do you know her exact position? 3 taps through this line. She confirmed them over the radio. Elena placed a hand against the metal and listened. Good work. Now move back and let my team assess the structure. Nathan did not move. I was a marine communications specialist. I can go through the intake if you need someone small enough. Elena faced him fully. Rainwater ran from the edge of her helmet. Your service record does not make this a military bunker anymore. This is a confined space rescue. Unknown air, unstable access, rising water. You stay on the radio. Nathan's jaw tightened. For years, people had stepped aside when he spoke. Employees, contractors, even elected officials had learned to interpret certainty as authority. Elena did not. She pointed to the microphone. That child knows your voice. Right now, keeping her calm is not less important than going down there. It is your assignment. The word landed harder than an order shouted in anger. Nathan looked at Echo, then at the weak green radio light. Understood. Elena's team moved quickly. 1 firefighter tested the air behind the maintenance panel. Another anchored the rescue frame across a reinforced section of floor so the rope would clear the corroded opening. Portable lights filled the corridor with a pale white glow. Nathan turned the hand generator at a measured pace. Amara, the rescue team is here, he said. Static answered first. Then her voice returned. How many? For inside the bunker. More outside. Is Echo still there? Nathan glanced down. He has not moved more than 3 feet from this vent. The shepherd lifted his head when he heard his name. Tell him I am all right. Nathan almost smiled. He does not believe me. A faint laugh came through the speaker, brief and fragile, but real. Elena crouched beside the east access panel while her team removed the bolts. Rust cracked under the wrench. The metal cover shifted outward, releasing air that smelled of wet stone and old machinery. The monitor remained steady. "We have a vertical shaft," one firefighter said. "Approximately 24 feet. Narrow clearance." Elena studied the diagram. "Prepare one rescuer for descent." Nathan relayed each safe detail to Amara without burdening her with the risks. He asked about the water. "Almost 2 inches near the door," she said. "It has not reached the radio platform." "Good. Keep your flashlight pointed at the east vent. The beam is getting dim. Then turn it off for 10 seconds at a time. Save the battery." She obeyed. The radio fell silent except for her breathing. In that quiet, Nathan heard something else through the pipe. A soft knock from below. Then another, farther west than before. One firefighter turned toward the wrong corridor. Echo rose instantly, crossed to the eastern vent, and pressed both front paws against the wall. Elena watched him, then raised her hand. "Nobody moves until we verify the sound path." Nathan leaned toward the microphone. Amara tapped the vent 3 times. 3 clear strikes traveled through the eastern pipe. Elena nodded once. "East shaft confirmed." The rescue line began descending into the darkness. Then the radio light flickered, dimmed, and went out. The darkness on the radio desk felt louder than the storm. Nathan turned the hand generator faster, but the green light did not return. The crank moved too freely now. Somewhere inside the old unit, the stored charge had failed. "Amara," he called into the dead microphone. No answer came back. Echo lifted his head from the eastern vent and listened with his whole body. Captain Elena Ruiz signaled for the descent to continue. Firefighter Marcus Cole lowered himself into the narrow shaft, boots braced against damp concrete, helmet lamp shrinking as the rope carried him below the floor. Nathan wanted to follow. Every instinct from his years in the Marine Corps told him to move toward the silence, to put his hands on the problem, to make himself useful in the most visible way. Elena caught the change in his face. "Stay with your assignment," she said. "The radio is gone." "Her voice is gone," Elena answered. "That does not mean she is." Nathan looked at the dead controls, then opened Isaiah's logbook again. A folded page near the back showed a backup circuit connecting the lower radio to the east ventilation conduit. Beside it, Isaiah had written that a manual tone could travel through the metal even when voice power failed. Nathan searched the desk and found an old signal key beneath a coil of wire. He connected it to 2 corroded terminals, cleaned them with the edge of his field knife, and tapped 3 slow pulses. Echo pressed his nose against the vent. They waited. Rainwater ticked through the bunker. The rescue rope whispered across the pulley. Then 3 faint knocks rose through the pipe. Nathan closed his eyes for half a second. "She is still conscious," he said. Elena relayed the confirmation to Marcus. From inside the shaft, his voice came over the rescue team radio. "I am 20 feet down. There is a split in the passage. I can hear water from the west side." "Take the east route," Elena said. "Confirm visually before entering." Marcus moved lower. The air monitor clipped to his harness remained steady. Nathan tapped again, this time 2 short pulses and 1 long. It was a simple signal Isaiah had marked beside the words "keep answering." After several seconds, Amara replied with the same pattern. She had understood. Nathan continued the exchange, giving her something small and certain to hold on to while the rescuers worked. 3 taps meant stay calm. 2 meant help was close. 1 long tap meant conserve your light. Echo followed every sound, shifting his ears toward the eastern wall whenever Amara answered. "I see a beam," Marcus reported. "Weak light through a vent cover, east side." Elena leaned toward her team radio. "Can you reach the communications room?" "Not directly. The access corridor is blocked by a warped panel. I am moving to the maintenance hatch." Metal scraped below. Nathan tapped twice. Amara answered twice. Then the pattern changed. 3 rapid knocks. A pause. 3 more. Nathan checked Isaiah's notes. No matching signal appeared. He tapped once and waited. Amara responded with 3 rapid knocks again. Echo rose and moved from the vent to the base of the red flood door. Water had begun to seep beneath it in a wider line. Nathan understood before the others did. "The water is rising faster," he said. Elena nodded toward the shaft. "Marcus, expedite the eastern hatch. Do not open the red corridor." A moment later, Marcus's voice returned, strained but controlled. "I have the hatch. I can see her." Nathan gripped the edge of the desk. Through the silent radio, no voice came. Only the old bunker, the rain, and the measured sound of a rescue line feeding deeper into the earth. Then 3 knocks traveled up the pipe, followed by 2 more. Isaiah's code. Stay calm. Help is close. Marcus reached the maintenance hatch and worked the swollen latch with both hands. The metal resisted, then shifted with a dull groan. A narrow opening appeared, and his helmet light entered the communications room in a pale white beam. Amara stood on the raised radio platform with water covering the floor below her ankles. Her flashlight had gone dark. One hand rested on the wall, and the other held the old signal key she had used to answer Nathan through the ventilation pipe. "Amara Lewis?" Marcus called. She turned toward the light. Relief crossed her face, but she did not move. "The floor slopes near the red door," she said. "Grandpa wrote that the deeper side is west." Marcus checked the water, the ceiling, and the air monitor on his harness. "You did exactly right by staying where you are." He widened the hatch enough to pass through, then stepped onto the raised platform beside her. Above them, Captain Elena Ruiz listened to every word through the rescue team radio. Nathan stood at the dead field radio with echo pressed against his leg. He could no longer hear Amara, but the rescue channel carried Marcus's comm instructions. "I have contact. She is alert. No visible injury. Preparing the secondary harness." Nathan released a breath he had not realized he was holding. Echo did not relax. The German Shepherd remained fixed on the eastern vent, ears forward, waiting for the one voice that mattered to him. Marcus secured Amara into a compact rescue harness and clipped it to the main line. "You will feel the rope lift you," he said. "Keep your arms close and look at me until you reach the shaft." Amara nodded. Water moved beneath the red door in a widening stream, but it still remained shallow across the room. Marcus guided her through the maintenance hatch and into the east passage. The corridor was narrow enough that she had to turn sideways. Her shoulder brushed the concrete, and she stopped. "I cannot see the top," she whispered. "You do not need to see the whole way," Marcus said. "Only the next 3 feet." Above, Elena repeated the command to raise slowly. The rope tightened. Amara rose through the shaft, past wet concrete, rusted brackets, and old cables that had not carried a signal in decades. Nathan moved to the opening but stayed behind the safety line. He wanted to call down to her, yet Elena had ordered silence so Amara could hear Marcus. He obeyed. That obedience felt unfamiliar, but not weak. It felt like trust. 10 feet below the surface, the rescue line paused while the team adjusted its angle around a narrow section. Echo gave a low whine. Nathan placed one hand on the dog's neck. "She is coming," he said. The rope moved again. First came the top of Amara's helmet. Then her face appeared in the white rescue light. Rainwater echoed through the bunker. Red emergency lights flashed across the walls, and every person in the room seemed to breathe at once. Elena and another firefighter lifted Amara onto the reinforced floor and removed the harness. A medic wrapped a thermal blanket around her shoulders. Nathan stepped forward, but Amara looked past him. "Echo." The German Shepherd crossed the floor only after Elena opened the safety barrier. He reached Amara and lowered his head against her chest. She wrapped both arms around his neck. The dog stood completely still, as though movement might make her disappear again. Nathan watched them in silence. Then Amara reached into the pocket of her raincoat and removed a small brass key. "This was Grandpa's," she said. "It opens the archive cabinet." She pointed toward a rusted storage wall behind the radio desk. "He said the truth about this place was never in the county files." Nathan looked at the demolition authorization still folded inside his coat. Outside, another vehicle arrived through the rain. Richard Vale stepped from it carrying the final clearance report.